Hey Dee, did you know your iPhone can identify plants?
Oh, yeah, I've tried it.
Yeah, and this is without an app. You take a picture, you click on the picture, and you get the little eye with the little sparkle on it. You click on that, and then you click on look up dash plant, and then it will tell you its best guess as to what that plant is.
Yeah, and it's not always right, but it also gives you the location of where you took the plant, which is helpful. And you can also send information back to Apple to let them know the ID isn't correct. And Google Images, for those of our friends who don't have iPhones, Google Images has a similar ID program too. And I actually use it a lot in garden consultations to help people with finding out what their plant is.
That is cool. And I will tell you in a little bit about a plant that I looked up, and it got it pretty darn close. And I was surprised.
Cool.
With that, welcome to the Garden Angelist, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
And I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden on several acres out in the country.
We call ourselves Garden Angelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love other gardening, and we want others to love it too.
Yes, we do, and we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, Dee.
What's up in your garden?
What's up is what's out. I pulled up all the onions and I'm letting them cure a little bit, and then I'm going to be cutting them up and freezing them. Some I will actually use. And so that's going on. Cucumbers are coming out my ears. Squash coming out my ears. Tomatoes are coming on faster and faster. Corn is tasseling. I've never seen such big tassels. It's the only thing that's like a disappointment this year is the doggone green beans.
Yeah, I can't figure out what's going on with your green beans. I really can't. I don't know.
I know. And I walked around this morning in the garden looking for my gardening knife, which I lost last week. I put a little thing on Instagram about that. I got more responses to that. Apparently, missing garden tools is a thing.
It is.
But I did find a surprise out there when I was looking for the knife.
What was that?
The surprise lilies are starting to come up. The lycoris.
So mine are up, but they aren't blooming yet. I need to go out there and look because if I'm remembering right, the pink ones bloom first. And then the red ones bloom a little later. And I've got some of both.
That is correct. The only one I have is the pink, which is the lycoris. The red one you're thinking about is oxblood lilies.
So they're both lilies? Lycoris, right? Aren't they both lycoris, but one's like Sanguineum and the other one's something else? I don't know.
That I do not remember.
We're way off topic. Keep going.
I did some weeding and everything. And I also got my Lego kit finished for my orchid.
Man, I wish I could have a Lego orchid, but I don't have time to put it together. You know what? I put together...
And wait a minute. Huh? I took a picture of it with the iPhone, and then the iPhone identified it as a moth orchid. That was my surprise plant.
That's awesome because it is a moth orchid, isn't it?
It's supposed
to be. From the species Lego.
Yes.
Legodaceae.
Yes.
Well, in my garden, I potted up all of the daylilies that showed up in the big box, and it's the wrong time of year to have daylilies, but I have them. And so they were soaking their roots in my sink, and there were so many of them that they were taking up the whole sink because they sent me great big clumps of them. Is what
generous clumps.
And so they were very generous, and I appreciate it because that'll help them bloom faster. So I got them all into pots, and that took some work because I had to go buy more potting soil. You know how it goes.
Yeah, I do know how.
Blah, blah, blah.
I do know how it goes.
Yeah, but I did it. I got it done, and tonight, Bill and I are going to put a tarp over them because we're really concerned that it's still too hot for them, even in the pots. I don't want them to rot. They're too expensive. Plus, I did a lot of work. So we're going to put a tarp over them, and I just wanted to mention it because that's a great way to help your container plants get through a hot spell. You can either tarp them, put a wet sheet, anything to get the sun off of them and increase the humidity a little bit if you can, and then, or put them in the shade.
I have a neighbor around the corner, and she puts tarps over a bunch of stuff in her front, and I'm like, that's a lot of work. Why don't you just plant something that's appropriate for this climate? I mean, it's not like it's in a container like your daylilies.
Right.
Once they're in the ground and
Right.
established, they'll be fine.
They will.
These are her
Don't tarp 'em
landscape
then.
plants. It's like,
No.
maybe you should have. Never mind.
Maybe you should grow something that likes that side of the house.
Exactly.
I always have to tell people that on garden consults. I also did a little bit of weeding, but very little because it's so hot. It's been 104, 103.
That's hot.
104.
It hasn't been that hot here. So I have no excuse for not weeding.
Well, there you go. I won't judge you. And I've also just been basically keeping things alive. So checking all of my water lines, making sure everything is, still there.
That is good. So I'm going to start us off with a quote.
Go for it.
To lie sometimes on the grass under trees on a summer's day, listening to the murmur of the water or watching the clouds float across the sky is by no means a waste of time. And that is John Lubbock. We believe that is true.
I believe that is true, but I don't believe anybody in Oklahoma is lying outside unless it's really early in the morning because it's too hot. It's 79, 80 degrees even at 7 a.m. But I love that quote that he must live in a different climate.
Yeah, maybe that he's probably, we'll look it up and find out he's English.
Yeah, probably. So this week we thought we would talk about flower obsessions. And this arose out of the fact that I was listening to some of my favorite podcasts.
A rose. That's funny.
I did good there, didn't I? And I really love the Rose Chat podcast. And this one was with someone called The Rose Geek. And she actually has videos on YouTube. And she lives in the Virginia River Valleys is where she lives.
Okay.
It was very interesting to hear how hard it is to grow there too, because you would think that'd be the great place to grow. But she has 600 roses. 600. I was so shocked. I stopped at a stoplight and texted you and said, we've got to talk about obsessions, plant obsessions.
And even and we know that I'm obsessed with the genus Viola, but I'm not so obsessed to have 600. But
could you do 600 violas?
I'm not even.
I guess little plants. I don't know.
I can't imagine how much time and attention one has to give to 600 roses.
Too much. Even because I know I don't give my roses very much attention, but you saw how long it took me to get all of mine cut back this year.
And how many do you have?
I only have, I think right now I have 25. I don't have very many. And some of them, they aren't all different varieties either. Like I'll have 3 of Harlow Carr, which I'm getting ready to pull out because it really hates my garden. I'm going to put something else in there that likes it better. And I have 3 of, of another variety because I'm trying to create blocks of color. And she does too. So, but still 600.
She must have help.
I would think she has help. I don't know how she does it, but I will say this, listening to she and Teresa talk about roses and their favorites, I actually took several screenshots, which if I can find my phone, I will tell you some of the varieties they loved, but we can also talk about my obsession.
Daylilies?
Now, obviously it's daylilies. Yeah. I don't get obsessed with them all the time, but I go through stages where I'm obsessed with them,
Like that stage where you went to the national convention and bought a bunch more? Mm-hmm. That stage?
Yes.
You're in right now?
That one. Yeah, that one. Okay, so here are some of the roses that were their very favorites, okay? And one of them is called Pompanella, and I will put it in our show notes so that you have it. And Pompanella comes from Cordis roses, which I think, if I'm remembering right, is out of Germany. And a lot of times German roses do really well. Everybody talks about this rose, and I don't have it. Benjamin Britten, Britten. It's a repeat flowering David Austin English rose that is a most unique color, kind of a carmine red mixed with pink. And I might have to get that one and replace Harlow Carr with it.
You might.
And then there's Vanessa Bell. They both agreed that Vanessa Bell, and all of these are really disease resistant too. And that was part of their criteria. Because who has time to spray roses, even if you wanted to, which I don't.
No one does.
Vanessa Bell is gorgeous. I'm showing you a picture of it.
That is a
It's kind of
beauty.
white with a beautiful yellow center. I think it opens as a yellow bud. And then the last one is one that is called Mother of Pearl. And it's a peachy pink with a darker center.
That's pretty.
Really pretty. So all of those are considered disease resistant, and we'll link to them because I thought that I stopped my car so I could just quickly take screenshots of what they were talking about.
So when you talked about these plant obsessions, and
Mm-hmm.
so you're in the you're a member of the National Daylily Society, right?
Right, American Daylily Society. It's also the American Horticulture, American Hemerocallis Society, but they decided Hemerocallis wasn't a common enough word because it's the Latin term, and so they changed it. I mean, it's under both names now.
So what's interesting is I went to the American Horticulture website, and they have a list of plant societies. And so if you are obsessed with a particular plant, you can look to see if there's a society. And I will note they have both. You're right. They still have the Hemerocallis Society. They don't have the Daylily Society listed separately.
Right, because there's two separate websites for the same society for AHS when we're talking about Hemerocallis. Yeah, I think that's an older list. And you said that you went and looked at the American Violet Society, but
it is defunct. I mean, you click and nothing happens. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that in the rabbit hole. But some of these things you think, really, people are obsessed with boxwoods, for example. There's an American Boxwood Society. And
you've obviously never been to Augusta, Georgia for their plant sale. I actually spoke at one of their plant deals. It's a big meeting they have, and then they have this sale that's coincides with it. Those women are completely obsessed with boxwoods of all types.
Well, there's a woman in my garden club that's a member of the American Boxwood Society. And I says, why? And she says, well, they have some of the best conventions in places and get into some gardens that you are just unbelievable.
That you can't get into.
And so she said,
that's a good reason to join a society is the tours.
Yeah.
But the other good reason to join the society? Nobody knows more about that specific plant than those people. So they can tell you the best ones to get. They can also tell you all the disease problems that those plants have and which ones to find that are disease resistant. And they just know everything. So I can promise you people in the American Boxwood Society know all about boxwood blight and the best thing to do. And they know about that nasty caterpillar that is just tearing up English boxwoods in the UK. So,
and then there's the Holly Society of America.
No, thank you.
The Holly. There's a North American Heather Society. I never thought
they've got to be out west, right? Because Heather's
they're in California.
Yeah.
There's a note on here that says website may not be functioning because a lot of these are run for the love of the plant and not as any money making venture. And so I read a whole forum, that sometimes it's just somebody donates their time and their money to keep the website going. And then, if they age out or get obsessed with a different plant, then that's the end of that. There's the American Ivy Society, by the way. It's in Florida.
Of course it is.
An Ivy Society, I would not pick Florida for that.
I would. I think they have a lot of ivy down there. Okay. I think they grow a lot of ivy.
All right.
But
well,
I'm not an expert, so
we'll link to this.
I was going to say the Daylily Society revamped their whole website a few years ago, and that was because there was a younger member. I think she's 50, and she's a techie, and so she. I'm just going to say who she is, Nikki Schmidt. She's the one who helped spearhead that because she was president that year. And they redid the whole thing, and it's very user-friendly. We also have the old one up, too. Because in the Daylily Society, every plant is registered. And so if you show plants, you have to have the registration name, and so there's a big database.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, it's the best database probably in the United States. But we talked enough about obsessions. I have one more thing to say about obsessions. So it was easy for me to go to the American Hort Society website and click and here's all the plant societies. And I got to thinking about how in the,
like the 70s, even the 80s, 90s. How did people find out about these? And I suppose that's what those
Right.
little classified ads in the back of the garden magazines were for.
Right. That's exactly what happened.
And they all had
Yeah.
publications that you could get in the mail. So,
Well, I know that the Daylily Society used to have this thing called the Round Robin, and way back in the day, it was all letters. And it was truly a round robin letter, and you would add to the bottom of it, and then you would send it to the next person on the round robin list. When I got into the group, it was an email list. It was my favorite thing to be on because you learned so much about plants, who hybridized what. I mean, people were obsessed with it, and it went around and around. And now I don't know if the robin is still in existence or not.
that's interesting. Well, that's enough of that obsession. Let's go on to our next quote. And it leads to another obsession, obviously.
Summer was our best season. It was sleeping on the back screened porch in cots or trying to sleep in the treehouse. Summer was everything good to eat. It was 1,000 colors in a parched landscape. That's by Harper Lee, and I assume it comes from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes.
But it might not.
It does.
Yeah, I figured it did. And you know what? I'm old enough that I remember that kind of summer.
I do too.
Because there were just, there might be one window unit in the whole house that was in the living room. And so we slept on sleeping porches too. And it was everything good to eat. It's part of why I have a vegetable garden is because my grandmother. So
Right.
now we're going to talk about another obsession that people truly are obsessed about.
And that is hot peppers.
Men especially, not to categorize people, but men especially are into can I grow the hottest pepper, make the hottest salsa. In fact, Bill's cousin has salsa every year that just is it's almost inedible, is so hot sometimes.
Well, there's a guy at the farmer's market I go to. I think they call him the pepper guy. But he sells pepper and tomato plants, and he's still got a few for sale. But if you want the really, really hot pepper plants, he keeps those in the back of his truck, and you got to ask. And I think he almost wants you to sign a waiver that when he sells you one of these, you won't come back
Right.
and sue him when you burn the poo-poo out of your mouth.
Yeah, because, some of them are too hot. I mean, they're just too hot.
So the way they measure the heat in peppers is the Scoville units, and I think most people are pretty familiar with those now. And I read up a little bit, and we'll put a link to a website that talks about how the Scoville unit somebody came up with it, and it's basically how much sugar water is needed to basically neutralize the pepper taste.
Oh my God.
And now they do it by measuring the amount of capsaicin, which is the chemical that makes the heat. And so
Right.
back in the day, the habanero pepper was the one. Oh, so hot. It was 100 to 300,000. I'm sorry, 100,000 to 300,000 Scoville units. And people
Right.
thought that was hot. We made a list that you got of the top 10 hottest peppers in the world.
And this is from a website called pepperhead.com. And so at the very top of this list is the Carolina Reaper. It has 2,200,000 Scoville units.
That's too hot.
That's scary. Then there's the Trinidad Moruga Scorpion.
It just sounds terrible.
7-pot Douglas. I don't know, I'm not pronouncing that right. And then there's the 7-pot Primo, which is only 1,469,000 units. The Trinidad Scorpion Butch T is not as hot as Trinidad Moruga Scorpion. Then you've got the Naga Viper.
No.
And then you've got this little pepper called the ghost pepper. And I have a story about the ghost pepper.
Yeah, tell us about the ghost pepper.
One summer when Claire and I were by ourselves, we were at Trader Joe's, and every year they sell these chips that are called the ghost pepper chips. And we like spicy food,
Right.
so we thought it'd be fun. So we get them out and we start eating them, and at first it's all okay, but then you realize you're in trouble.
Oh my gosh.
And we were in so much trouble, and we were like looking up online, what is the fastest way to neutralize this because it was killing us. And it actually makes you feel like your throat's going to close off. And so we tried milk, nothing, didn't touch it. We tried sugar, nothing, didn't touch it. So that's when we looked up and they said, try peanut butter. And you know what? Peanut butter neutralized it.
So here's the thing. And so A couple things to say. First of all, there have been more than one person that ended up in an ER because they decided that they were, tough enough to eat Carolina Reaper. No.
No,
And you can go out.
no.
I haven't done this in a while, but you can go to YouTube and find YouTubes of people that are trying it for the first time. It's just ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay if you want to try one of these in where a tiny amount of it is within some other ingredients maybe, but I would not suggest eating a Carolina Reaper. There's a really popular show on YouTube where this guy interviews famous people as they eat these extremely hot wings. And my son-in-law sent it to me. And so we'll link to that because it is funny to watch them. And a lot of these peppers are used in the sauces for some hot wings. I like heat, but I want it to tickle my taste buds, not kill me.
Yeah, there's a steakhouse here in Indianapolis called St. Elmo's, and they have a really, really hot sauce for shrimp. And
yeah,
they, challenge people to eat that, I guess. I don't like shrimp, so I would never eat it. But I do want to dispel one myth about peppers. And people feel like if you put a hot pepper in the garden, let's take something tame like jalapeno, which didn't even make the list. And you grow that next to bell peppers, people think that it'll make your bell peppers hot, and it will not do anything to that bell pepper. That's the bell pepper is going to be the heat that it's going to be based on its own genetics and not based on, if it got pollen from the other plant. Now, I wouldn't necessarily take the seeds out of that bell pepper and plant it and expect to get that bell pepper.
You won't. And you might get something hotter.
But
because,
So you don't have to separate them in the garden other than I like to put like hot peppers in one bed and regular peppers, sweet peppers, I guess, in the other bed, just so that I don't get them mixed up by accident. Because, there's a hot banana pepper and then there's the regular banana pepper. And so.
Right. And so let's talk really quickly about what your favorite hot peppers are and what my favorite ones are.
Well, I don't know that I have a favorite. I put jalapenos and stuff.
Do you not have a favorite hot pepper?
Not really.
Well, my favorite hot pepper is not that hot. And it's now I'm not going to be able to think of what it is. That figures.
Poblano. I was going to say.
I really love poblanos. I think poblanos are amazing. And sometimes you'll get one that's fairly hot, jalapeno hot. But it's okay. And I also like Anaheims. We should link to our old show where we talked about the Anaheim pepper and Big Jim.
We should.
Because Big Jim is an Anaheim pepper, and it was all about terroir. It was a really good show. It's one of my favorite ones we did.
Very good.
Oh, and I linked in our show notes to the place where you were talking. It's called First We Feast on YouTube. And this guy has people eat hot wings, and then they interview them. And it is funny.
Right.
I don't know why it's funny, but it's funny.
It's funny to see people in pain from eating peppers. Let's move on to our next topic.
That seems wrong somehow.
It does seem wrong. Let's go on. That's an obsession I don't understand. Here's the next quote. One benefit of summer was that each day we had more light to read by. Jeanette Walls.
I remember that too.
So
reading till really late.
Yes. On the bookshelf, New Wild Garden, Naturalistic Style Planting and Practicalities by Ian Hodgson. And this one's from Cordero Press. It's under the Francis Lincoln imprint. So right away, you know that it's got some very gorgeous pictures, and it is coffee table size.
Yeah, Cordero bought Francis Lincoln, and they had a lot of books that were in process when they bought them, and boy, they were beautiful things. We used to get stuff from Francis Lincoln.
You can still if you ask the right questions
If you ask the right questions, yeah.
So anyway, this one's from 2016, but I see there's a revised edition that came out in 2021. And I will tell you that this is actually a very nice book. It starts off with, there is a drive to create gardens and plant communities that are more in tune with natural processes and more importantly, with our own local communities. And so Ian is a landscape architect, and He has advice and ideas on how to create a little bit of wild in your garden and how to have habitats for wildlife. Of course, attracting pollinators and having food for pollinators. What I like about this book, Dee, is he's in England. This is not all about natives, which when you think about wild plantings, that's the first thing that people think of is everything native. This is more,
it's more about style.
This is
right?
style. And so he's got some great wild looks, and he talks about how to achieve that. And then he's even got a chapter on wild containers, which I thought some of those were beautiful. And I thought, I need to remember these for next year, because he mixes in grasses with the other plants and stuff, and not just our regular old annuals, but he uses perennials and stuff in those containers.
Me too.
And then
I like doing that.
A potted up micro meadow was a great idea.
That's cute. Yeah. I think I would love that.
So it has lots of pictures for inspiration. I have a library copybook, and it's going back. It's not going back till the day it's due, because I still have some more looking to do. But that's on the bookshelf. New Wild Garden, Natural Style Planting and Practicalities by Ian Hodgson.
So our next quote is, "Deep summer is when laziness finds respectability." That's Sam Keen. And we are doing it in front of our dirt. And you actually found our dirt this time.
The dirt I found, Kew Gardens over in London, England. They uncovered a new giant water lily. And so if you're into big giant water lilies, and these are those ones that have the great big leaves that are...
You can stand on. Kids can stand on them.
Yes, you could stand on it. Mm-hmm. So they figured out that they had a species that's new, and they've had it for 177 years in their herbarium, mislabeled. And then they finally figured out that it was a new species, and it was called Victoria Boliviana, because it's from Bolivia. So anyway, it's an article that talks about how they kind of had this suspicion that there was this other species of water lily out there other than the two that they had. And then they kind of figured it out, and they got with people in Bolivia, and just talks about all the crazy steps they go through to figure out that a plant is really different. But these are beautiful plants, and you're not going to have them in your home garden at all.
No. They are huge. They're those giant water lilies, and they're known. Kew Gardens is known for their water lily connection, so I'm not really surprised that they found it. And you and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between it and the other water lily, but they can, because for one thing, they take DNA, I'm sure.
Yeah, they did DNA studies. And these, they're also...
There it is. I'm looking on the website. There's that DNA.
They're also tropical plants, which is another reason we're not going to grow them.
No. They would cover up my whole pond too.
Yeah.
So I think the pictures in this of the water lilies are beautiful, and it's a fascinating story. I like it.
Yeah. There's people always think, well, there's nothing new under the sun, and then there's something new under the sun. So that's our dirt.
Yes, there is. Cool. You want to do the quote?
"It is not down in any map. True places never are." Herman Melville. I don't know why. I just thought that was a nice quote.
I like it. It's a good one. So my rabbit hole. You want to hear my rabbit hole first?
Yes. I was catching up on this earlier this week when you had...
when I was emailing our friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fascinating. And you know what? I didn't update it from when we talked to Diane, because I always ask Diane stuff, because if it has to do with a new thing, you know what I mean?
Diane Blazek from All America Selections.
Yeah, exactly. So, and in fact, I'm not seeing it on here, so I must have done something with the email. Do you remember who she went to ask the question? His name was Mark, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'll have to look, and you start talking about what it is.
Maybe she can look. Yeah, well, we were, okay, so let me explain what we're talking about first. So QIS seeds, you may have seen on certain seed packets or on my blog, because apparently I grow a lot of the QIS seeds. I wondered what that meant. I thought, what does that mean? That's one of those weird deals. Like there's QIS Larkspur, and there are several varieties. and I grow dark blue because I love dark blue larkspur. And I was giving a talk in Tulsa last week on Monday and Tuesday, 2 talks. And in it, I have a picture of that QIS larkspur, dark blue. And I was like, wait a minute, there's also QIS gomphrena. And I also had a gomphrena picture, and I've grown the QIS gomphrenias too. But I also grow the Truffula pink from Proven Winners. Anyway, the point is, it made me wonder. And I thought, what does that mean? So I went and did a pretty good search online. And eventually I found from Craft Seeds Holland, quote, QIS means quality in seed, and it's the best series presently on the market and widely recognized by professional cut flower growers in the world as a real winner. Considerable improvement over standard varieties with regard to uniformity, color, flower size, and stem quality. Okay? And so I was like, okay, well, but where is this like what would I say? Like a term that is used by the entire group? What is it? And it turns out it's not. It turns out it's something that Craft Seeds of Holland just decided. They just made it up. Sort of like those towns that say they're the world's watermelon town or whatever. I will say this. Craft Seeds of Holland had 3 lines of QIS things, and they are all really good. There's a Lamium, there's the Gomphrena, and there's the Larkspur. There may be more, but those are the 3 I know about. And they're still all on the market, so they must be quality in seed.
Well, you're right. Your friend Mark Gross from Pan American Seed is the one who told
Thank you for finding his name.
That they completely made up that designation of quality in seed, and they're really the only one that uses it.
Right. And then his company acquired, he's with Pan American Seed.
Correct.
And his company acquired Craft Holland. And that's the name of the stuff, so they kept the name. And he was just delightful to talk to, and I really appreciate his email explaining it. And then he went and looked up QIS, the term QIS, and apparently it's applied to all kinds of things.
Most 3-letter acronyms are. Yeah.
It was just fascinating. So it was a cool rabbit hole, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes. I got one other thing to say, Dee. Mm-hmm. The Dutch seed company, I'm going to mispronounce it. It's Keft Seed, Kieft. I think when you wrote it in our show notes, it auto-corrected it to Craft.
It changed it.
And I'm thinking,
you're probably right.
It auto-corrected it. It's Keft, Kieft.
Well, thank you for correcting my autocorrect, because I was thinking Craft Holland, but yes, it's the other name.
Keft.
Man, I'm having trouble with names this morning.
Keft
I think I need more coffee.
Oh, maybe. So my rabbit hole, because you got me going on plant obsessions. So then I'm, of course, looking for at the American Violet Society, thinking maybe that's not the same as the African Violet Society, and I would find my people. And I found a website that doesn't exist. And then I went on to found this forum that has posts from 2015. And I think I actually posted on there looking for a viola at the time. Anyway, they said it was defunct, and then there was a sweetviolets.org, and it doesn't exist anymore. The URL got taken over, and it's just a spam site now. So I thought, well, I'll go to newspapers.com, and I'll see if the American Violet Society, if it showed up in newspapers. And then I found out that they were all about African violets, and I thought, well, phooey to them. That's, phooey. So
how can wait a minute. How can the American Violet Society only be about African violets?
Well, I'm telling you that every newspaper thing that talks about the American Violet Society, the next sentence is African violets, even though there's an African Violet Society. So, and then there's a Facebook group, but the last post was like 2015. So it's defunct. And so I suppose if you're going to have a Viola Society, then you find out that the American Viola Society is not about plants. It's about musical instruments, the oversized violin called the viola.
It's a viola.
Viola. And
yes, I played one.
Okay.
I played one in junior high. So yeah, it's the viola.
I always call it.
Yeah. It is a bigger violin, and it also has a deeper sound, but we digress.
So I suppose if I was going to start a group, the quickest way would be go out to Facebook and start a group, but I'm not going to.
Oh my gosh, how would you find the time?
I wouldn't.
Really?
So I thought that is the end of the rabbit hole. I suppose I could start a website and call it, but Sweet Violets is taken. And anyway, it's,
You could call it QIS Violas. Quality.
so I thought as I went further and further down this rabbit hole, I thought this is a rabbit hole to back out of right now. It's leading to no good. So with that, let me tell you what I'm going to be doing in my garden this next week. I am absolutely.
You bet.
I've gotten some cleanup done in the sunroom, so I'm going to sow some seeds for fall cabbage, which I said I was doing a few weeks ago. Keep harvesting. I'll probably end up freezing some stuff. I got a weed. I got a deadhead. I may go to a couple places to check out possible edgings for my flower borders because I want to do that. And then I decided every empty spot in my vegetable garden, like where I pulled out the onions, I'm going to sow green bean seeds just to see.
I think you got to figure out why your green beans are so bad.
Well, no, the second batch is doing much better. And so I think I will actually have green beans just later than normal. And then the green beans are legumes. So even if they don't produce enough before fall, they'll have fixed some nitrogen in the soil. I feel good about that. So
whatever gets you through the night.
Yeah, whatever. So Dee, what are you doing in your garden this week? You didn't write anything down. It'll be a big surprise to me.
I didn't because it's hot.
Oh, it's hot.
Anything. It is so hot, Carol.
Oh.
You have no idea how hot it is, and it's been hot for a month. But okay, so I need to go out and deadhead the Agastache. See, I don't think it's pronounced Agastache either. Really and truly, it's Agastache, but because it's Greek. But who cares? Blue Fortune is going to get deadheaded. Blue Fortune anise hyssop. We'll just call it that today. And it needs deadheading. There are several things that need to be deadheaded. And I did go out last week and deadhead all my zinnias, and they're doing much better now. And then I need to continue to pull out all the daylily scapes that are done. I don't know, just, putter. I need to putter.
Puttering's good when it's hot. Get out there early and get it over with.
Right.
That is it for this week, Dee. Thank you for listening to The Gardenangelist. I hope you've hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
But we're not up then. If you listen to Apple Podcasts, we'd love a 5-star review. That helps us get noticed by others. Could you also share our podcast with your gardening friends? Word of mouth is still the best way to get the word out there.
And be sure and check out our show notes for links for more information about today's topics, plus links to our own websites.
And this part's really important. Subscribe to our new Substack newsletter because that gives you a direct link to the podcast. And if you're not techie, you can listen to it on your computer.
And if you want to help support us, use the affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we're in a small commission and it costs you nothing.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate today. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.